Jagger Firkus and Reed Dick take the country by storm at the top prospects game. The Brandon Wheat Kings are back on the mend with the return of Nate Danielson, and Nolan Maier is inches away from cementing himself in the history books. I'm FWFarenholtz, and you're tuned in to WHL Weekly.
Line left wing side, Gunther, he'll walk in, wrist shot, he scores! Now he's got the hat trick, Dylan Gunther, hometown kid flying down that left wing, who can stop that?
Bedard cuts to his right, shoots and scores! Connor Bedard breaks the deadlock 22 seconds into the second period.
Well, we're almost there, folks. It's the final stretch. We're looking at an average of 5 to 6 games left for each team before we ignite the postseason. And in all honesty, it's really exciting this year. Like, we haven't had playoffs in the WHL since 2019. So technically, it's been 3 regular seasons since playoff action. To put it into perspective, the Kootenay Ice still existed the last time we saw the playoffs. I miss them. But aside from that, we've seen 2 more teams lock their way into the postseason, and that is the Moose Jaw Warriors and the Saskatoon Blades. If everything stays familiar over the next 2 weeks, these 2 teams will actually be facing each other off. And of course, we got to see a possible preview of them over the weekend, where the Warriors just, let's just say they kindly took them out to dinner and maybe saw a movie after. Good lord. Like, this came off as a bit of a shocker too, because Saskatoon was 5-1 versus Moose Jaw heading into this affair, but wow. Like, I know you didn't have Trevor Wong, but yikes. This is honestly what makes this Moose Jaw team an actual sleeper for the playoffs. They're like a shark when it gets the scent of blood. Give them that sweet taste of twine and they're going to be scoring at will. And with the recent play of guys like Braden Jagger, Denton Matejchuk, Eric O'Leary, Jagger Firkus, and well, the whole team, how about that? Like, they've all been pouring on the offense. 17 goals for in their last 2 games. I mean, I'd almost be advocating to drop your last few games to take your chances versus Red Deer, because Moose Jaw is beyond lethal at this moment in time. And I mean, I'm obviously somewhat joking. I wouldn't advocate for a team to consider losing any games, but Nolan Maier of the Blades is definitely one that does not want to drop another game going forward, since he currently sits the 3rd most winningest goaltender in WHL history, only sitting behind former Wheat Kings goalie Jordan Papirny and former Giants tendy Tyson Sexsmith. And considering the fact that Maier has never been on an absolute dynamo team like either of these 2 that fed him wins like alphabet soup, it makes this ever the more impressive. Maier has been the clear-cut starter for the Blades for the past 5 seasons and has been through tons of adversity. I mean, hell, he also had a season where he only played 20 games because of the pandemic. And with 7 games remaining in the season, it's highly likely that Maier will see the nod for at least 5 to 6 of them, if not all these games, for a chance to seek out that record. They have 1 more game versus Medicine Hat, another versus PA and Lethbridge, 1 more versus the dreaded Warriors, and 2 more versus Brandon. When it's all said and done, like, I think Maier's got a fabulous chance at etching his name in the WHL history books. Those Wheat Kings, though, they are not going to be an easy foe to overcome. Just like the Warriors, their offense has been scorching as well, like ever since the return of Nate Danielson, which is something they desperately needed. Without Danielson, the Wheat Kings went 2-7, averaging 2.4 goals for along the way, much below their season average of 3.27, which perfectly showcases that they were missing that point per game status from Danielson. Since his return, the Wheat Kings are 2-0, and Danielson has been a main contributor when it comes to getting his team on the board early. He's had 3 assists since his return to the lineup, with much praise to Nolan Ritchie and Tyson Zimmer as well. They stepped up big time in his absence and haven't let off the gas pedal since his return. The Wheat Kings currently sit 6th in the East and are bound to punch their tickets to the postseason in the upcoming week. Now, before we move on into some more league action, I thought I'd take a second to talk about the grand success from the WHL players that attended the CHL Top Prospects game. And to put it lightly, the WHL commanded this event. It was theirs. Not only did they exceed in the game, but in the short combine as well. And nobody did better than Matthew Savoie. Savoie came first in 4 of the 10 categories, most of which revolved around his skating with the puck on his stick, and he blew away the competition with this insane breakneck speed. But he wasn't the only player from the dub to top some of these lists. Josh Philman of the Broncos completely smashed the competition in the reaction category, putting up a time of 9.184 seconds, and to put it into more context, Kevin Korchinski of Seattle came second with a 9.735, and if you know anything about sports, you know that time differential still is staggering in the grand scheme of it all. And within the game itself, the real star of the show was Jagger Firkus. He put on a fascinating display in front of the country's best and, in my opinion, has cemented himself in everyone's mind as a legit first-round candidate. Like, he's only 3 points behind Savoie in league scoring. In my opinion, they have very similar games, and I'd even argue that Firkus has the edge in creativity. All in all, it's just nice to see the thorough recognition that he deserves finally come around. And in the crease, it was Reed Dick and Mason Beaupit putting on a display. The two combined for 39 stops and didn't allow a single goal during their tenure in the crease. Obviously, better defense ahead of these guys does a lot, but in turn, they're also against the best U18 scorers in the country as well. I'm not saying you draft a goalie based off of how they played half of a game, but it's something you have to consider. And with all these high caliber guys away in Ontario, it provided an opportunity for some of the more undercover guys to stir up some commotion of their own. Get yourselves ready, because it's time for the Prospect Watch.
The return feed, Matt Savoie puts it home.
Jagger Firkus, his team leading the 34th, 6-0 Warriors.
We're starting it off with a real youngster, because with Owen Pickering at the top prospects game, it allowed for the nimble Josh Fluker to play a couple more games, and in my opinion, he's been one of, if not the best 06 to play in the league this year. He's compiled 4 assists in his 7 games played this season, and has surely put his name in the hat for the 2024 NHL Draft. For the 2023 draft class, Caden Hamill has been coming along nicely with an increase in minutes. He scored 2 goals over the week and actually nabbed a Gordie Howe hat-trick in the process, showcasing his diversity as an all-around defenseman that isn't afraid to stand up for himself and teammates. For this year's draft though, Thomas Sukanik is a attendee that can push to be a late round consideration as a +1. He stopped all 52 shots he faced this week, including 14 saves in a relief effort and a 38 save shutout. And to top it off, there's another draft +1 that is really making strides in his game, and that's Marcus Almquist, the 5'7" winger capable of reaching Mach speeds. He hasn't had the easiest transition to the North American game, but he's planting his roots and has garnered 7 points in his last 10 games, including all 4 goals he's scored on the year. He was a real dynamic player in Sweden and Denmark, and if he can start showing those traits here, it could mean a lot for his hockey future as he plays on this side of the pond. His Victoria Royals have also been on a special tear as of late as well, and he's not the only one to thank. The scoring touch away from the Overagers has been prolific over the last week. Tanner Scott notched himself 7 assists over his last 4 games. Braden Sherman has been reinstating his scoring abilities, putting up 5 points in the same time frame, and Riley Gannon has added a quality scoring touch to the middle 6. The Royals actually amounted 5 consecutive wins over the course of 2 weeks, but lost a tough one versus PG on Saturday. The harder part for Victoria though will be the 3-game suspension Taryn Fizer received after kneeing Cougars forward Blake Eastman, who recently came off the injury reserve as well. The Royals and Cougars so far sit somewhat safe in the 7th and 8th playoff seeds, with Spokane dropping each of their last 5 in regulation, further separating themselves from that final playoff spot. Spokane's playoff dreams may be gone, and that's not the only thing that vanished in the WHL this week. Connor Bedard's 21-game point streak has unfortunately come to an end after a difficult 3-1 loss to the Blades. In this period of time, Bedard truly separated himself from the rest of the league. His 23 goals on a 21% shooting percentage has boosted him up to 2nd in league goal scoring, while his complimentary 22 assists to go aside him has brought him to 5th in league scoring as a whole. The player sitting right on top of him though in scoring, Logan Stankoven, has also been tearing the league a new one over the last few weeks. Ever since his blow to the head versus the Giants earlier this month, Stankoven has been equipped with the cage, and all I can say is he's pulling it off well, almost like Kobe or Kyrie repping the face mask in the NBA, and the stats behind the cage are quite impressive. In Stankoven's last 7 games, he's scored 8 goals and 12 points. He has plastered 55 shots on net for an average of 7 shots a game, along with a pleasant 57% on the faceoff dot as well. But he also may have scored one of the goals of the year from his knees on home ice.
Here's the Blazer, Stankoven, left wing trying to work around Dory, and does! Stankoven and shoots! Score!
Kamloops ended up losing the last game in their 6-game series to Kelowna, but their 9-game win streak has really put them into contention to seal off the Western Conference title. And if it weren't for the offensive blossoming of Everett's import players Nico Huutonen and Michael Goot, I think the Blazers would have a strangle on the West. But those two have been putting out over their last 5 games. 12 points from each of them. Both of them had just fed off of each other in the best way possible, and it's really cool seeing Everett's offense be the main factor in their team's success, as they're most often built from the ground up. That being said, I think it's appropriate that we polish things off with our top players, and surprise, surprise, it's Nico Huhtinen. He cracks the list with a 6-point weekend, topping off with a hat trick versus Spokane. Then it's his western neighbor from Seattle, Lukas Sveshkovsky. It's not his first time on the list, and it definitely will not be his last if he keeps up this miraculous scoring pace. He's easily been Seattle's best player over the past 2 weeks. Which leaves Jack Finley with the final spot. He's been a cerebral part across Winnipeg's offensive and defensive ends, and he's adding some offensive flair as his team preps for the postseason. And all I gotta say is, the Eastern Conference better watch out, because Winnipeg still lurks in my top teams for the week, as they've pushed their winning streak to 12 games and their point streak to 16. Following these behemoths, we got the Thunderbirds, Royals, and Silvertips for their consistent winning ways over the last week. 2 more weeks to go, my friends. 76 total games remain, and with the power invested in me, I vow to watch. For real though, I've been heading to the last couple of Giants games, and I plan on possibly scooting to a few playoff games when they come around, but practicum and the end of school is just around the corner, which I'll be honest, I'm excited for that too. Anyways, hope you all have a great week and enjoy some WHL hockey. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.